In the dense jungles of the Amazon basin, nestled deep within the heart of South America, there's a place few have ventured, and fewer still return to tell the tale. It is a towering monolith known as El Morro, an ancient rock formation that rises ominously from the dense rainforest like the finger of some forgotten god, pointing toward the heavens. In 2014, I found myself standing at its base, unsure of whether the courage I had gathered would be enough to uncover the truth. My name is Carlos Rojas, and I'm a journalist. My work takes me to the most remote corners of the world, but nothing in my career had prepared me for the assignment I had received: to investigate the mysterious disappearances of several indigenous tribespeople near El Morro. The locals called it La Montaña Maldita, the Cursed Mountain, and from the moment I arrived, I felt its dark presence looming over me. I had spent months preparing for this journey. I had spoken to locals in the nearest town of Pucallpa, a small bustling village on the outskirts of the Peruvian Amazon. They warned me no one ventured close to El Morro. In hushed voices, they spoke of an ancient curse, one that had been passed down from generation to generation. It was a tale of lost treasure, forbidden rituals, and the wrath of an ancient spirit that guarded the mountain. I didn't believe in curses or superstitions. I was a man of logic, of reason. But even I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong as I made my way to the mountain. The air felt thick, heavy with humidity, but also with something else, something unseen. It was as though the jungle itself was watching me. The first night we camped near El Morro was when things started to go wrong. My guide, an indigenous man named Pedro, kept to himself around the campfire. He was a man of few words, but the expression on his face told me that he was deeply uneasy. He had told me stories of his ancestors, of the legends surrounding the mountain, but I dismissed them as the fantasies of a superstitious mind. That evening, as I lay in my tent, I heard something strange, a rhythmic thudding, faint at first, but growing louder, like the sound of drums echoing through the trees. I called out to Pedro, but he didn't respond. The thudding continued, a deep, resonating beat that seemed to come from the mountain itself. I couldn't sleep. The drums seemed to grow louder with each passing hour, until it felt as though they were right next to me. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the sound stopped. A chilling silence followed, one so complete it was as though the jungle itself held its breath. The next day, Pedro was gone. I woke up to find my camp abandoned. My gear was scattered, the fire long since extinguished, and there was no sign of Pedro. I called his name, but there was no response. Panic set in as I realized that I was alone in the jungle, hundreds of miles from civilization. I had no choice but to continue on toward El Morro. By the time I reached the base of the mountain, I had lost track of time. My mind was foggy, my body exhausted. I had walked for hours, and it felt as though the jungle itself was closing in on me. The trees pressed in on all sides, their thick trunks casting long, twisted shadows. The air was thick with the scent of decay, earth, leaves, and something else, something foul. The mountain loomed before me, its jagged peak piercing the sky. But there was something wrong about it. It wasn't just the shape of the mountain that disturbed me. It was the way it seemed to pulse, as though it was alive, breathing in the humid air. I set up camp at its base, but the unease that had been gnawing at me for days intensified. That night, I heard the drums again. This time, they were louder, more insistent, as though they were coming from deep within the mountain itself. And then, I heard something else. A whispering, faint but unmistakable. It was in a language I didn't understand, but the tone sent a chill through my entire body. It was the sound of a voice calling my name.
Carlos.
I spun around, but there was no one there. The jungle was silent once more. But then I saw it. Movement in the shadows. Something large and dark moving among the trees. I could feel its eyes on me, watching me, waiting. My heart raced, and my instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs refused to move. In a daze, I made my way deeper into the jungle, following a narrow, winding path that seemed to appear out of nowhere. It led me to a clearing, where I found a strange stone structure, half buried in the undergrowth. It was an altar, ancient and weathered, its surface covered in strange symbols, their meanings lost to time. The air around it felt cold despite the oppressive heat. And then I saw them, the bones. The bones of dozens of people were scattered around the altar, their remains long forgotten by the world. Some were partially mummified, while others had been picked clean by scavengers. What struck me, though, was the way they had been arranged. The bones formed a circle around the altar, as if to guard it from whatever force lay beyond. I stood there in silence, my breath shallow. My mind was reeling, but I knew that I had uncovered something ancient, something that had been buried for centuries. This was the reason for the disappearances, the curse that had haunted this place for so long. But just as I was about to turn and leave, something caught my eye, a dark shape moving within the trees at the edge of the clearing. My heart skipped a beat as the figure emerged from the shadows. It was Pedro, or what was left of him. His skin had turned a sickly, unnatural shade of gray, and his eyes were hollow, as if the life had been drained from them. He moved with an unnatural, jerky gait, his arms outstretched toward me, his mouth agape in a silent scream. I tried to run, but my legs felt heavy, like they were weighed down by invisible chains. Pedro's mouth opened wide, and from it came a sound that was not human, a screech that reverberated through the air. The ground beneath me trembled, and the air became thick with the stench of rot. As I turned to flee, I saw something that made my blood run cold, a figure standing atop the mountain, its silhouette outlined against the sky. It was massive, towering over me, and as it moved, I could hear the sound of drums, louder now, pounding in my chest. I ran as fast as I could, the jungle blurring around me. The figure was still behind me, its dark shape growing larger with each step. The whispers followed me, calling my name, but I refused to look back. I made it out of the jungle that night, and I've never returned. Pedro was never found. The village of Pucallpa grew quiet again, the stories fading into whispers, and the curse of El Morro was spoken of only in hushed tones. But I know what I saw. I know what was awakened on that cursed mountain. The drums still haunt me, and I can still hear that voice calling my name in the dead of night. And I know that El Morro is still waiting.